Okay, everybody, we are recording again. So that's one of the reasons why I started out with what's making you smile right now. We brought everybody into the room. Everybody was smiling, and makes it easier to start confronting the challenges if you're coming in with a positive frame of mind. You can look at what the opportunities are. So Ivy, I'm going to share, oh, Emily.
So we have a lot of people that are having fun with their virtual backgrounds. And people have now started to figure out how to put pictures of their family, their houses, something so that rather than just like the generic backgrounds that it comes with. And that's been a really good kind of lighthearted thing. People like change their backgrounds in the middle of the, like when everyone's coming in, like now I'm in the Louvre, now I'm at this other museum, and now I'm in Alaska, and I was there with my family in August, and that's been a really easy, good, lighthearted icebreaker.
That's cool.
To start
I like
off the
that.
meeting.
I like that. That's great.
I don't have my camera.
So I'm going to share my screen, and then Ivy, if you could unmute yourself and read what's on the screen for us.
Creating an engaging Zoom board meeting agenda. Right, keep going?
Yep, keep going.
Greetings, agenda, board meetings, in-person versus video, scheduling, co-host, alternate host, sense of the room and voting, screen sharing, breakout rooms and executive session, recording, open meetings, and security and questions.
Thank you. Thank you. What I'm using right now is I'm sharing a PowerPoint, and it's one of the recommendations is if you're going to be showing a lot of individual pictures or documents, if you put them into a PowerPoint, it's much easier for you to go from one to the next one instead of having to find it on your desk each time. We'll talk a little bit later about screen sharing where people can annotate or a whiteboard or other things. But if you're just going to be showing things, I find it much easier to put them into a PowerPoint and go from one to the next. And one of the reasons why I asked Ivy to read it is another way of bringing each person into the room. If you have things that you're going to be showing people and you want to keep people engaged, they need to hear more than one voice. You're getting your board members to read things, to do things, and quite honestly, a little bit of a hidden agenda is they don't know you're going to be calling on them, so they have to pay attention. So as we said, the agenda said that the next thing we're going to be talking about is board meetings, in person versus video. So I'm going to stop sharing. And let's have raise your hand and we'll unmute, or I'll call on you so you can unmute yourself. What's the difference between an in-person and a video meeting? First of all, let's talk about what's the same. What do you still want to be able to do in both? Ken?
Still, I mean, you need to be able to communicate. You need to be able to relay information and get feedback.
Okay, okay. What else?
Make personal contact.
Karen, and then, I'm sorry, Marge, not Marge.
They need to be able to vote on the motions that need to be voted on.
Okay, we'll cover that. Ken, we are definitely going to be talking about giving information and getting information.
Similar to that, you just need to get the business done.
Get the business done.
Hello, can you hear me?
Yes.
Face-to-face personal contact you still need.
Okay, okay. As much as we can do in video, yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah. Other thoughts? Yeah.
Is there a best way to hold the Zoom meetings when most of your people are over the phone and not on the computer face-to-face?
We'll talk a little bit about that.
Okay.
There is a difference between people who are on phone and video, which is the way Lori is right now. She can see the screen, she can see whatever we're doing and hear us all, but her audio is through the phone. And then there's the ones that are only on the phone, which is more difficult to handle. So we'll see what we can do with that. Claudia and then Mary Ellen.
Yeah, I did want to piggyback on that because a lot of the board meeting is around conversations. And so I think it's sometimes it becomes difficult on Zoom to have a conversation because there's so many people that talk over one another.
Mm-hmm.
So if we could touch on that as well, because I think that's exactly in our board meetings, there is a lot of conversation.
So that's one of the reasons why I said raise your hand and we'll call on you, because Zoom does not really permit talking over each other. But one would hope that in a board meeting, people aren't talking over each other a lot anyway, if you're managing the board meeting. Mary Ellen?
Also, body language is important to see. So that's why, as opposed to doing people calling in for a meeting, you can't see their body language. Whereas on Zoom, if they're on video, you can at least see people's body language to get a better feel or pulse of how people are feeling about the conversation.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. Ivy and then Rosie.
I have two comments. One is before COVID-19, my president was trying to get us into Zoom, and I was a little resistant, but I'm glad that he kind of pushed, so we were a little familiar with Zoom. Now it's made a huge difference. But one thing I like about Zoom over the real people meetings is that people can't have the side conversations. You just can't. You just can't have two people. I have one person that particularly just talks to this on the side, and it's distracting. So that part has been really nice. But I definitely find that if you have the picture on, for me personally, I'm much more engaged than if I'm just listening to it.
And Rosie?
Engagement, I think, is a really important word. We've downsized last year and used to run national phone-in kind of meetings. And I never knew who was awake on the other end and who wasn't, who was actively involved in what was going on. And this way, I think it's a little easier to challenge people, but to also keep them engaged.
Laurie wants to speak. I just saw her hand up.
So one of my challenges is I have a few, how can I put it kindly, technologically challenged older board members. Would you recommend that, I reach out to them ahead of the meeting and maybe walk them through a tutorial or just offer the phone option? I definitely want them to participate, but I don't want them to, assume that they're going to click something and everything's going to work fine the morning of the meeting, only to have them not be able to participate. And my savvy around navigating Zoom is hunting and pecking and learning on my own, so I'm not the best tutor. So if we could kind of figure out how to manage that so that we don't have people not participate because they are not technologically ready to do so.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. Laurie, that's a really good point, and I absolutely recommend that you offer a 10-15 minute time for people to learn how to get comfortable with Zoom. And also be generous to everybody. We're all still learning. So that's one of the things. And the other thing is, I believe, and Paul can correct me if not, there is a possibility that Dana will be offering a Zoom Basics just for board members. I mean, like you would send your people to click on this and just for board members, and it would not be for running a meeting. It would be, because that's either this one or the other Zoom tutorials that we've been doing, but this is just, let's get comfortable with using Zoom.
Even the Zoom Basics, if I could just interrupt there, that will help them watch a video of the webinar Zoom Basics that Susan did, and that will help them get comfortable with it. But I would agree, help them the first couple times. Get on with them before the meeting starts so that everything's set up.
And so in the interest of time, I'm going to keep on going unless somebody has something urgent. Ken, did you want to say something?
Just wanted to ask Paul, is that tutorial on the Dana website that I could refer board members to it now?
Yes, it is.
Thank you very much.
Okay. So thank you, everybody. A couple of the other things that are, I'm going to share the screen and go to the next slide. There, come on. Board meetings, in person versus video. We just did that. Great. Challenges. You mentioned most of them. There's people on the phone, video, and a video phone combo. There's different levels of comfort with the technology. One thing we didn't talk about is the distractions. Right now, the way we're all set up in our houses or wherever you happen to be, you don't know if somebody's going to have a child walk into the meeting. You don't know if a dog's going to be barking. The Amazon delivery guy has come and your dog is just going crazy. There's a loss of the social chatter, which we talked a little bit about when people first come in. Make them smile, make them chatter. You also have a narrowed visual field, which means we tend to be looking straight ahead. Even if you're looking at everybody on the screen, you're looking straight ahead. So when you would normally have maybe a 90-minute meeting and you wouldn't necessarily take a break, you need to take a break at about 45 minutes or so. Get everybody to just stand up and stretch, look around. And I'm going to try to remember to do that myself during this session. Because we're so used to, in a regular meeting, you're going to be leaning to one side, leaning to the other, looking this way to look at one person, looking at that way to look at another person. Zoom, straight ahead. How do you deal with latecomers into the meeting? Is it disruptive? How do you bring them up to speed, or do you? Dealing with technological glitches. And then there's the problem of Zoom bombers, which we'll talk about meeting security towards the end. So these are the things that we're trying to work out that are different from a regular meeting. But as Ivy said, sometimes these are actually better because it does reduce those side conversations, although they might still happen in chat, person-to-person chats. Almost everything that I'm going to be showing you today is in your settings, the settings that you get to when you go into the web zoom.us and sign in over there. That's where the settings are. That's almost everything that I'll be showing you on how to set it up so that you have the ability to do the other things I'm showing you. They're in settings. And since I can't see everybody on the screen right now, so that if you're going to be raising your hand, I may not see you do that. So please, if you have a question of anything, unmute, chat, let me know. Okay?
Susan?
Yes, Paul.
I would just point out what you just did will need to be done in board meetings as well. If you're sharing documents and sharing your screen, you may not be able to see everyone on the window as well. So if they want to speak, everyone should know that you should invite them just the way Susan did.
Thanks, Paul. That's a really good point.
Susan, this is
Yes.
Marge, and I just went into Zoom US, but I don't see where you find settings.
You have to sign into your own account in order to do that.
Okay. All right.
Yeah.
Sorry.
It's okay. Good question. So let's talk about scheduling a meeting. One of the nice things about Zoom is that when you go into setting, when you get that screen where you can see settings, one of the points is meetings. And that's the best place to schedule a meeting, especially if you want to schedule one that's going to be a recurring meeting. Best practices for nonprofit organizations is to set up all of your board meetings in advance. so that it's on everybody's calendar and nobody's saying, oh, but I didn't know we were going to have a meeting. Well, you told them at the beginning of the year, we're having meetings on the third Tuesday of every month, right? So Zoom lets you do that. Let's say we're demonstrating scheduling, how to schedule recurring and required registration. You set the date, you set the time, and from personal experience, remember to set whether it's PM or AM, how long the meeting's going to be. And then you click on recurring meeting. Okay? When you click on recurring meeting, you'll be able to scroll down and see how often do you want to recur? Do you want to repeat every 1 month, 2 months, 3 months? If you change from monthly to daily, this will change 1 day, 2 days, 3 days, etc. Do you want it to be on a particular date of the month? Or you can click on the drop-down box, first, second, third, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, whatever it is of the month. And then you can set an end date. Or you can say just 7 months, and it will do it after 7 occurrences. It's really handy. It's all set up at one time. Questions? Doing okay so far? Great. Now, yes.
So I do have a quick question.
Sure.
And this, it might not be exactly about the scheduling, but when I did a Zoom meeting the other day and I had my slides up, I couldn't see the bottom of my screen. So I couldn't see the chat that was going on. And so I wondered, like, when you're doing it now, are you able to see the bottom of your screen, and can you watch your chat, or are you not able to see it?
I can't see it right now. However, if somebody starts chatting to everybody, something will be flashing on my screen that says there's a chat.
And then you would have to go there and look at it, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. Because when I did it before, right now I can see the chat at the bottom of my screen, but when I had my PowerPoint slides up in the meeting, it took up my whole screen and I couldn't see the bottom. So I'm not sure.
Right, you can't see it, but you do see the little bar. Actually, I do have that bar that says mute, stop video, security, participants, etc.
Yeah, I couldn't, when I did mine the other day, I could not see that bottom part. So
the reason you couldn't see it was because you were sharing your screen, but if you moved your cursor to the bottom of the screen, it would pop up for you.
Really?
Yes.
I think I tried to do that, but
well,
I'll try again.
I would play with that a little bit, because what happened to mine is that bar showed up at the top of the screen, and then I've had to move it around so that I can see everything on the screen that you're seeing. But you can,
I might have to practice doing that, because I wondered if there is a way, I'm sorry, I'm distracting people, if there's a way to print out your chats after your meeting.
We'll get to that.
Okay, perfect. Thank you.
Okay, great. So let's talk about requiring registration. Particularly if your meetings are going to be open to the public, you may want to require people to register for the meeting. This is a security situation where you don't know who's going to be coming in. You might want to have a list of people who are planning on coming in advance. So if that's the case, you can require registration. And since you know your board members will want to be coming to all of your board meetings, you click on attendees can register once and can attend any of the meetings. If it's something that you want them to be able to register for just one occurrence and they have to register each time, you can click on that one. Or they can have options of attending one or more of them. So those are your options there. And you can require a meeting password or not. One caution, if you do require a meeting password, you put that in there and you do not see what you wrote. and there's no way to see what you wrote. So if you're going to put a password in there, remember what you put in. Small, just a little caution there. And you can set it up on whether you want everybody to be able to have video, et cetera, the usual meeting settings. Oops. This one's important. Do you want to let people come in before the host? Do you want everybody to be muted when they enter? Do you want to enable the waiting room? Again, this is security something that Zoom put in to default to having a waiting room enabled. If you don't want people to have to wait in a waiting room, you have to turn this off. The default is that it will be on. To mute participants upon entry, that might be something that you want to start, especially if you have open meetings to the public, in which case you can unmute specific people. We're going to get to breakout rooms in a bit, but it's still within the meetings that you can pre-assign breakout rooms. So if you're going to break people into different groups and you know in advance how you want to break them out, you can do that in advance. And you will be able to modify it after you're in the meeting. This, I think, is one of the most important things. Alternative hosts. If I was not able to make it into the meeting and I'm the host, the meeting can't start. It's advisable to have somebody that can start the meeting instead of you. Or if for some reason something happens to me and I need to leave the meeting, to have an alternative host already set up makes it a lot easier. Let's say all of a sudden my internet goes out like that. We have it set up that Paul and I are alternative hosts to each other right now. We'll talk about co-hosts when we get to that point. Actually, I can say it right now. I can turn any one of you into a co-host. Very helpful for letting people into the waiting room, out of the waiting room into the meeting. Very helpful if, as was said, you can't see the chat very easily. It is distracting if you're talking to see the chat. You can set up a co-host while you're in a meeting so that somebody else can be letting people in. I'm going to stop sharing for a moment so that we can discuss a few things.
Susan, this is Marge. Is a co-host the same as an alternative host, or are those
No.
two different things you're talking
They're
about?
two different things. An alternative host is somebody who can start, end meetings, put people into breakout rooms. A co-host only has the privileges that are available to the host in a meeting, when you are already in a meeting, and the co-host cannot put people into breakout rooms. But they can manage the chat, they can manage the muting and the unmuting. They can manage letting people into the room and kicking them out. They can manage the polling, but they cannot, and they can manage the recording as well. But an alternative host can do everything that a host can do. Okay, so let's have a little bit of a conversation here. How many of you use your bylaws or have the bylaws available in a meeting? Raise your hand. Okay, it's probably a really good practice to have your bylaws available in a meeting. You never know when somebody's going to say, well, what does the bylaws say, right? If you have somebody in your board, on your board, that always has the bylaws open on their computer already when you walk into a meeting, then you know that if somebody says, what do the bylaws say? They can quickly switch over to that. If you use any particular guidelines for meetings, like a Robert's Rules or something, recommendation in something like this is that you have somebody who has them already open on their computer, or if it's a book, they have them there, so that you don't have to wait for people to be scrambling through their computer while they're also trying to use your computer for the video meeting. They can just switch over to it and take a look. Any other documents that you regularly refer to, whether it's a budget, whether it's your bylaws, whether it's your strategic plan, set it up so that either you or somebody on your board knows that they should have that available. So that's part of easing the movement of a meeting when you're like this, when you're in a video setting. Claudia.
Yeah, I have a quick question. If you have a public meeting, but you're going to show, talk about sensitive information, I know we can go into executive session, but we usually do that towards the end. What do you suggest? I mean, I'm thinking maybe you don't put the document up on the screen, but you've emailed it to them ahead of time and can talk about it.
We're going to be talking about open meetings and or executive session and security towards the end of this. Yep.
Okay.
But it's a good question. Mary Ellen?
Can the alternative host upload documents as well and share them?
If you set up your settings to allow anybody to share a screen, then anybody can share their screen in the meeting.
Okay.
Other questions? Cool. Okay, everybody, stand up, sit down. Well, stand up, stretch, and sit down if you're able. Feel a little more refreshed? It does make a difference. Sharing screen again. Let's get there, okay? Oh, wait a minute. I shared screen instead of stop share, share screen, back to the PowerPoint. There we go. How do you get a sense of the room? Sometimes when you're in a meeting, you're not really taking a vote, but you want to see if everybody is pretty much in agreement or not. If you take a look at the participants, you can ask them a question. So how's everybody feeling right now? At the bottom of the list of participants, it looks like this. Yes, no, go slower, go faster. That would be more like for a webinar or for today. If they click on more, you can get a thumbs up, thumbs down, applause, I need a break, I'll be right back. So you can ask people, so how's everybody feeling right now about this topic? Should we keep on going about it? And if you've got several people, you can ask them to just click yes or no, or what do you think? And as the host, you can look down the list of participants and you can just kind of see mostly green, mostly red, if somebody's got a particular problem. And you can get a sense of the room that way. Not a vote, but a sense of the room. You could use it for a vote, but recognize that everybody's vote is visible to everybody. So this yes, no, go slower, go faster, etc., is visible to everybody in the participants list. But you can also do a poll. And let's see if the poll got kept. Yes. I'm going to launch a poll right now and hope that you will answer that for me. Does everybody see a poll come up on their screen?
Yeah.
Great. How about if you answer it?
Susan, I'm seeing a slide that says polling, a guy in a green jacket with a question mark.
You're not seeing the poll itself?
No.
Okay. And who was that just spoke?
I'm sorry, this is Lori Sittler.
Okay, Lori, that may be because you're on phone and
I'm
not
only seeing
video.
that same thing. It's Ivy. I
Hi,
just
Ivy.
picture too.
You're not seeing the poll itself.
No, is other people
Nor
are.
am I.
That's interesting.
No, I saw it. It
I've-
came up very quickly.
I've got at least 13 people can see it because I've got 13 responses.
Is that because somebody's on a desktop versus an iPad or tablet of some sort?
Ivy, are you using a computer or an iPad?
iPad.
Okay.
And I'm on a computer.
But Lori, you're, wait, Who
I'm
said
on
that?
a computer.
but your phone is, you should have been able to see that. Okay. That may be difficult for getting votes. I'm going to end the poll. And I'm going to try relaunching it again. If everybody would please try doing it again. This is something, a learning experience for all of us. Okay. Ivy, do you see it now? Lori, do you see it now?
My screen hasn't changed. It's still the PowerPoint slide.
Okay.
This is Lori.
And Ivy?
I do see it, and I answered it.
Okay.
Or I did see it. Now it's not, but I did see it for a
Right.
minute.
Once you answer it, yeah, it should be okay. Okay, so if you've got people who are on phone and video, or just phone, they're not going to be able to vote.
That's good to know.
Yes.
I'm glad I was the guinea pig.
Okay, so here's the results of the second time round. And this was a demonstration of, can you see the results?
Yes.
Mary Ellen, you can see it also?
Yes, I have a question though. How did you initiate the polling? Where did you go?
That's the next thing I'm going to tell you.
Okay.
Okay.
So Susan, I can't see it, the
You
poll
cannot?
or the results. But when I click on polling at the bottom, it says you're logged in from another device.
That's me. So that might be the alternate host. We're both
That's
logged
what
in.
I was thinking.
If you had gone as P Stock, which is the alternative host for this meeting, then you would have been able to see it because that's two different people. Right now, we're the same person.
So that's instructive for everybody on the call as well.
Right. That if you're going to have an alternative host, they have to be a different person, not go in on the same account as yourself. Okay.
I don't understand that.
Okay. Both Paul and I came in as exec admin
Oh, okay.
instead of coming in as Susan Detweiler and Paul Stock.
Okay. So you have to come in as under your name, not as.
Well, it doesn't have to be your own name, but there has to be two different people coming in. But it looks like to Zoom, it looks like we're both the same person.
Okay, thank you.
Susan, when you just said if you're on video or computer and video, then you can't vote.
No, that's not what I said, Marge.
Okay, so sorry.
Marge, what it is if you're on the telephone, you can't vote. If you are on phone and if you're using a phone at all, you can't vote.
Okay, so
is what happened. And we're not sure about Ivy about using the iPad for voting.
I think that's what I meant to say was,
okay.
But so that would just be for this kind of polling where there are multiple answers. You can get people on the phone to vote if you have a yes, no question, can't you?
On the phone, you can just say, you can go around the room and ask their votes.
Yeah, okay.
Yeah. So the way I did that, the way I set it up is you can either do it in advance when you're setting up meetings, or you can go to the bottom of your screen when you're a host, click on polling, and it offers you this to set up a new poll. And it asks you, well, in your settings, you have to first allow polls to happen. And then you can set up the poll when you're in a meeting. If you've set up a meeting, you can go in and edit it, edit the meeting, and set up a poll. Click add a question. And what you'll see is something that looks like this. It will ask you, what are you going to call it? What's the question? What are the answers you want to give them as a possibility? Typed it in. What's the question? And here's an example of setting it up while you're in a meeting. You've had a good discussion with the group, and you want to get, and you've come up with 4 different options. While you're in the meeting, you can set up a question. You can set up a poll. In the host toolbar, there's the word polling. You pull it up. You can say, which option should we consider, whatever your question is. Option A, option B, option C, option D, and then launch the poll right then on the fly. You don't have to know in advance what you're going to be asking people because you don't know which way the discussion's going to go.
This is really good. I mean,
okay. Now you're also going to want to do some discussion collaboration in your meeting, right? Well, you can't look like this anymore, at least not right now. So you can be able to share your screen. If in the settings you set it up that anybody can share screen, that's great, because then your finance person can pull up their budget. So I'm going to stop sharing here. Actually, let me show you what sharing screen looks like first. In your settings, you have to set it up so that you can screen share. You can set it up that everybody can share, all participants, not just the host. You can also set it up so that anybody can start sharing while somebody else is sharing. I don't recommend that. I recommend that the host be the only person that can interrupt somebody else's share. You may have a reason to allow the others to interrupt other people's share, but I think I would default to make it only the host being able to interrupt somebody else's share. In a board meeting, I would recommend that anybody be able to share, because you don't know who's going to want to show a document, the budget, the bylaws, whatever.
Susan, this is Carl Schlegel.
Yes, Carl.
I have a question. Once you set the meeting up and it's out there, can you go back in and change any of these settings?
It's an excellent question, and I have not tried it. I do not know. Has somebody else tried it?
Yes.
And what's the answer?
So when you go back to your meeting at the bottom, like as you scheduled it, there's a bottom, at the bottom it says edit meeting. And
the question is whether while you're already in the meeting,
oh,
you
sorry,
can change it.
No, I
you
don't
can
know.
edit any of these before the meeting starts. But the
Like
question,
if you've already set up and like set out the meeting, you can actually go back in and edit if you need to.
That's correct.
Okay.
But if you're already
that's the question that I wanted to answer.
Okay, all right.
Thank
But if
you.
you're in the meeting, I don't know if you can change the advanced settings.
Right. Okay.
So if you're going to allow people, yes, Marge.
When you're allowing people to share, and like somebody might have the bylaws on their computer that would be the person to share those, where should they have those? Where should
On their computer.
But they're looking at this screen. So are they?
Okay, yeah. Let me show you where that is.
Okay.
On the bottom of your toolbar, in the toolbar, they will also have screen sharing.
Right.
It says sharing. And if you click on sharing, it shows, I'll show you what it's going to look like.
Okay.
Okay, so in your settings, you will set up whether you're going to allow anybody to annotate, which is right on other people's, right on the screen, right on a whiteboard. Do you want to save the whiteboard content? I recommend that you always have it default to saving the whiteboard content. You can always delete it later, but you don't want to, after the fact, say, oh, I wish I had saved it. You can decide whether somebody else can allow others to control the shared content. That's a judgment call. And remember when I asked you to raise your hand or not, or click yeah, up or down for a sense of the room, this is where you set it up to allow that, to be able to provide what they call nonverbal feedback. On your toolbar, it will say sharing. And if you click on sharing, this is what you'll see. Only what you will see is not your face, not my face, you'll see your face. You'll see the whiteboard option, and then any documents, anything you have on your desktop will be available for you to share specifically. If you share your desktop, whatever you have on your desktop is what people will see. If you specifically share this particular document, they will only see that document, even if you do something else on your desktop. That's an important point to remember, because if you're sharing a desktop, you might have something up on the screen that you want them to look at, and you go, oh, I also have to go see this. And if you switch over to something else, they're no longer looking at, say, the budget that you have up on the screen. Whereas if you had saved just the budget, if you had shared just the budget, then you can be looking something else up and they will still be seeing the budget. And this is what it looks, oh. If you're going to be sharing anything that has sound or video clip, you can tell Zoom that you want to share computer sound also, because otherwise you will not hear it if I click over to the best of Baroque music.
So are you saying, like the person that might have the budget, for instance, she has to have that document on her desktop to be able to share it during the meeting? So each—
That's preferred. That is preferred. If it's not already on her desktop, she has to go and find it and pull it up. So what I call, good Zoom etiquette is anything that you think you're going to want to share, you should have open on your desktop. Anything you don't want anybody else to see, like your email or those tabs on your web browser you don't want people to see, like you've been shopping at Chico's or something, just take that off. Just clean your desktop before the meeting.
Susan?
Yes.
Question. When I've been doing it, when you share your screen, if you have to actually say stop share and then go to the next document and pull that up.
That's the practice that I use.
Yeah, I mean, it's not, because it doesn't follow you where you go. You have to just stop sharing, then pull the next thing up and share it, correct?
Correct. Not if you've shared desktop. If you share desktop, wherever you go with your computer, everybody will be following you. If you share a particular document, you'll have to stop share and then go to the next one.
Oh, okay, thank you.
Mm-hmm. So I'm going to share. Stop share and then share. Not that one. Okay. Let's say you're holding a meeting and you want to get bunches and bunches of different ideas and you're standing in front of that meeting. That's one of the things you would normally be doing. You're having a collaborative meeting, you're up there with a flip chart. My practice is to set up in advance a plain white Word document that I can use as a flip chart. So, ideas for Zoom etiquette. Clear desktop. And this is where I would be typing in any other person's ideas and save the document. I use it as a flip chart. I find it very handy. What other people do, and which I'm going to start doing because I didn't even think of that, is in advance set up a Google Doc same kind of idea, blank document, but everybody can be working on it because you have shared that document. And everybody, you can give everybody a link to that same document, and everybody can be writing right in there at the same time. So that would be a collaborative way to be writing on a document or putting in new ideas, moving things around. So a shared Google document allows everybody to be collaborating on the same document at once.
Can we write on this
Yes,
document?
if you have the link, if you had the link to get there, you could. And I just realized, flip chart. And let's say you had your, one more thing that I forgot. Claudia mentioned the idea of having to get out of sharing and back into sharing to share something else. I just realized that you can do a new share. It's on your toolbar. Instead of stopping sharing and going to a new one, you can go to a new share and go to something different.
Where do you find the new share?
If you're the host and you're already sharing, it will be in your toolbar. Share screen, and I'm going to share the last, where's the budget? There it is. So if your finance person has shared the budget, here's something you need to remember, that people who are on the phone cannot see what you are sharing on the screen. Make sure that you've sent out your documents in advance. Be very, very explicit about what document you're looking at now on the screen and talk about it. So for example, Jody, we have the budget out right now. Line 5 is salary and wages. Want to let you know so that you can follow along with us. Now we're going to be talking about rent. That's line 15, Jody, or whomever else is on the phone that you're talking about. So they can have that document in front of them while they're on the phone. So if you're seeing the budget, while you're sharing it, you can be typing in whatever comment there is. Somebody questioned, why was there such a big change in the health benefits? You say increased cost, increased personnel. You can be working on the document while you're sharing the screen. See that there is a chat. Okay. Stop sharing. Take your questions. How are we doing so far? Questions? Thank you, Emily. Okay. The thing about sharing is there's a pro and a con to the sharing possibilities. It is harder to see who wants to talk when you're sharing your screen. Be cognizant of that. It's one of the reasons why I'm coming out frequently. Say, how are you doing? Get a sense of the room. Who's looking like completely bored? The other thing to tell you about sharing is that while you're sharing, it is very hard to see whether anything's going on in the chat. You will get a yellow flashing light if something's happening in your chat, and it's distracting to go take a look at it because you're in the middle of talking about what's on the screen and sharing on the screen. It's one of the reasons why I recommend a co-host. Co-host, you can say, oh, I call it my wingman. That's the person who's going to check in the chat and see if there's anything important. And, you know, give me a nudge and say, we need, or say out loud, we have a question about such and such. It's also the person who will let somebody into the room while you're busy in the meeting. Your wingman's going to be monitoring, is there somebody waiting that needs to come in? Okay. Recommend having a co-host in every meeting if it's at all possible. And because you can do it on the fly, you can see who's in the room, who came to the meeting, and ask somebody to be your co-host at that time. It's preferable to know in advance. Paul?
Something as well that was transparent to everyone as we had people join. They had not had their sound muted and there was noise in the background. And as the wingman, I went ahead and muted them. They didn't know they were causing a disturbance. Susan didn't have to worry about it. I was just aware of what was happening and was able to join in and help.
Mm-hmm. They're also handy for having, just a moment, Rosie, I just want to, they're also handy for having people who are having technical problems. If you know who your wingman's going to be, you can get permission to give that person's cell phone out and they can text the person saying, I'm having trouble getting in. Can you send me the link again? Or something like that. So that you, who's running the meeting, isn't constantly looking at their phone to see who's texted you with a question and interrupting the process of the meeting. One would hope that that would only happen within the first 10 minutes, but you never know what's going to happen. So if you're prepared, you have somebody who can handle that. Rosie, you had a question.
I did. When it comes to the documentation, for years we have books and books full of program or management meetings and that sort of thing. How do you do that when you do it with a video, with Zoom? How do you document the meeting? The same old way, or is there some new thing that
I need a little bit more about what you mean by documents, like the minutes of the meeting?
Yes, meeting minutes.
Same way you would have any regular board meeting, you'd have somebody taking minutes.
Same old, same old.
Same old, same old. Although I would recommend that you have it on like a Word document so that later on you don't have to have books of them. They're electronic and you can search them.
Okay.
I have
Claudia?
a great tip. I am now using for all my minutes and meetings a app called Otter, O-T-T-E-R. It not only records your meeting, but it transcribes it for you. So that, and it saves it for you. So I use it for every single meeting to go back, and you can actually capture exactly what somebody says. It's been a complete lifesaver for me. If you have more than one person that you share it with, you can get a premium account and it gives you more time. It also allows you to send it to yourself in a like an email so that you can get the transcription printed in a Word document. So I'm just sharing that because it's been incredibly helpful for me, and all my board members know that I am using it now. And so just as a tip.
Thanks.
Great. I have to go check that out. Thank you. Thank you.
And that was Otter, like the sea animal?
Yes, it's called O-T-T-E-R.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Thank you. That's great. That's great. Back to sharing screen. Stretch. You can stay seated and stretch. Okay, we're good. Back to the whiteboard. Another collaborative tool is the whiteboard. And the whiteboard allows anybody to write on it, but you have to direct people to where they can see how they can do it. should be able to see somewhere on your screen view options, something that says view options, and one of the options is annotate. And if you see that, you can type onto the whiteboard. And everybody can see what you can do. If you click on annotate, you should be able to see options of text, draw, stamp, spotlight, eraser. You can stamp little hearts all over the place. Yeah, I see people have found it. They like the stamps. Paul, can you check and see if anybody's having any difficulty finding that annotation?
I don't know that I can, because we're sharing the same.
Okay.
Look in grid. Okay. All right. Nobody is saying that they can't see it. Great. One of the reasons why I said that you recommended that you set it up in your settings, that you save the whiteboard automatically. If it's saved, this is going to come as a picture. It'll be a PNG picture on your computer. It'll be saved to your local, to your computer or to the cloud, depending on where you're saving it. And whatever's on there will get saved. Again, you can always throw it away later, discard it, trash it. But if something important is put up there, you can do it. You can also annotate other people's shared screens. If I'm in new share, we go into the Word document. If you can find your view options, you can annotate this piece of paper. What you type in there is not going onto the document. It's going onto a picture of the document.
Susan, quick question. How do you stop with the, when I was trying to go into something, it kept my eraser thing. And does it just go away?
I think you have to click on something else.
Okay. All right. Thanks.
All right. Next thing we're going to talk about is, where's my PowerPoint again? There you go. So there are all those different things that you can do for collaboration. And I told you about Google Docs. When you use Google Docs, anyone with the link can access it. If you click on share, this is the screen that comes up. It gives you this big, huge, long link for some reason, but that's what Google Docs does. And if you say copy link or get shareable link, you'll have that link to give to everybody, and you can put it in the chat so that everybody will be able to find that document again. And when you put them in breakout rooms or whatever, anybody can go to that document and everybody now has access to writing on it. Now we're going to go to breakout rooms. In the interest of time, I'm not actually going to put you into breakout rooms unless nobody has been in one. I'm going to pause sharing for a moment. Oh, that's not what I wanted to do. I'm going to stop sharing. Has anybody not been in a breakout room? Several of you. Okay, I'll put you in breakout rooms. So you see what's going to happen. Paul?
Yes.
Can you put people into breakout rooms? Because I am not seeing it on the bottom of my toolbar.
Hold on a second. I can.
Okay.
Assign
That's the-
15 people, and I'm going to put you in 3 rooms. So 5 of you will. All right.
Are you able to assign certain people to certain rooms, or is it all just random?
You can assign people to certain rooms, or you can take the number, divide it out automatically between the number of rooms.
Thank you.
You can also change the amount of time when you notify people that the rooms are closing. You had 60 seconds, you can make it 3 minutes.
Okay, thanks.
Right. So it just told me I'm going back to the main session.
Welcome back, everybody.
So Susan, I don't know whether it recorded it. There were a couple of questions. Could you manually assign people to rooms? Yes, you can.
Yes.
You can also change the amount of time once you close the breakout rooms from 60 seconds to a longer time if you want to.
Or a shorter time.
Or a shorter time.
One thing that we were very fortunate about is this time the computer put both Lori Sittlers into the same room. It's one of the things you have to be careful about, that if somebody is coming in on both audio and video, you need to look at where the computer is automatically putting you and make sure that both the head and the ears are in the same room. A colleague of mine had that difficulty. For those of you who have not been in a breakout room, can you see some value to that? You're going to have small group meetings. It's very helpful if you want to have a discussion. This is what you do if you're going to have an executive session in the middle of a board meeting. You can go into breakout rooms. You can manually put your executive session people into the separate breakout room. You can leave everybody else in the main room if you want, but you can put everybody that you want in the executive session into the breakout room, and you can have your conversation there. If you're recording to the cloud, which we'll talk about in a moment, it does not get recorded. Emily.
If people in the breakout room want to return to the main page, was there a space to do that? I missed something.
Yeah, there was a place like return to the main room or leave breakout. It said one of those two.
Okay, thanks.
And
So Susan, let me ask you a question. If I'm the host and I go into the breakout room for executive session, doesn't the recording
it does not record to the cloud if you're the host. If you're recording to the local, it does. Local recording follows whoever is recording. Cloud recording does not go into the breakout rooms. I tried it. I tested that on Monday. We'll talk a little bit more about that in the recording when I talk about recording. One thing we also noticed is that all of us saw a note saying that you're now going into a breakout room. Lori heard that same announcement on the phone, on her audio, because it does not know that she can't see the screen. But you can put individuals who are on the phone into breakout rooms as well. But it's also why you want to change the person's name on that phone. So as a host, you can rename anybody. That's why I wrote Lori Sittler audio over there, so that I could make sure that when Lori goes into a breakout room, her audio follows her. I would know which phone number goes to whom. Share screen, back to. Remember we said that you can assign participants into breakout rooms when when you're in the room, you can do that. As the host, you can say who goes where. Or when you schedule a meeting, in your settings, you can say the host is able to assign participants to breakout rooms when you're scheduling it. That means when you're scheduling your meeting, you can say who should go into what. So if you know that the executive session is specifically for particular people, you can set that up in advance. If you've never created a breakout room, this is what it looks like when you click Create Breakout Rooms on your host screen. You are now seeing me and my cousins. You will not see them. When I say that you can assign people to it, if you don't have the computer assign it automatically, you can say who's supposed to go into which room. I was able to put Aaron into room 2 and Anna into room 2. And this is what I saw afterwards. With a big red, well, small red dot saying you forgot to assign somebody. I could broadcast into anybody's meeting. As a host, you're not automatically put into a breakout room, but you can join any of them. So over here, the word join. This is what you see while they're in breakout. You can join any of those breakout sessions. So you can see what's going on. You can see if they need any help, or you want to be part of one and you can join it. You can also broadcast a notice to anybody. And once you decide to close it, you can tell it, you know, it will, as Paul said, give you a notification how long it's going to be. You can also set it up okay. I'm not sure why. Normally it will show down here, how long do you want your breakout to be? You can set it up for a set amount of time. Under options, that's where you'll see how long do you want the breakout to be? And how long do you want the notification of we're closing in 20 seconds or whatever to be? And this is where you would find out whether you can, under meeting options, when you're setting up a meeting, do you want to pre-assign the breakout rooms? So this is part of scheduling your meeting, along with enabling waiting room or enabling join host. You can say, I want to pre-assign the breakout rooms. Questions about breakout rooms? Mary Ellen.
There was under there, the last slide you had, authenticated users only, I think it was, under settings. You didn't mention, and I mean, is that part of the security that you want to do that?
Authenticated users has something to do with when you have a larger account with Zoom. There are certain people that are authenticated as users of that Zoom account.
Okay. So that doesn't really pertain to a meeting you set up?
If you have a larger account and you can say, I only want authenticated users to be able to come in, that's where you would click that. But if you're like in this particular situation with board meetings, they're not going to be on your account. They're not users of your account that you've told Zoom. My guess is that most of you have a pro account that's one host and you can have up to 100 people coming into a meeting. But the next size up is, I think, up to 5 different people can schedule things and be on the account. And those 5 would be authenticated users.
Oh,
And then, and so forth and so on for larger accounts with Zoom.
thank you.
Paul, is that your understanding as well? Yeah. Other questions about breakout rooms?
This is not about breakout rooms, but it's about what you just said, because we had a problem with the person that has our account. When she goes into a meeting, she automatically becomes the host when in fact she isn't.
If it's her account, she's the host. That's it.
So if she's on it, she's always the host.
Yes.
Okay.
But she can make a co-host.
Or she can make an alternate host.
She has to do that.
Yes.
Okay.
You can, well, wait, let's back up just a moment. In the meeting, she can go into participants and make somebody else the host. So if she clicks on manage participants, she can click for the additional options for each of the individuals and turn somebody else into the host.
One of the reasons that's important, if Susan, for example, needed to leave this meeting right now as the host, and I wasn't signed in as a host as well, it would all shut down. So if she needed to leave and she was really the owner of the account, she could say, now I'm going to make Paul the host. It was nice being with you all. She could sign out and we would all still be live and in the meeting.
And this is what it looks like. Participants. I'm just going to practice this just for a moment. Where's Tony? I'm going to turn Tony into our host temporarily, which I can't. You have to do it, Paul, because you came in first. Actually, Paul is our host today.
So Tony, do you want to change host to Tony for Linda? It's asking me. I'm saying yes.
Now everybody else will look at the participants in the meeting and it says Tony Ferlanda is host now.
I am now in charge.
Yep, he is now in charge.
How does that feel?
Powerful.
Mary Ellen, you have a question?
Yes, I do. Doesn't an alternative host allow you to run the meeting even if the host needs to leave?
Yes.
So you don't need to make someone else the host. The alternative host could then do everything.
Correct. But if you, yes, but if you don't have an alternative host, you can turn somebody else into the host.
Okay. I'd also like to comment on the breakout rooms. I've done it twice in breakout rooms, and I think it's much better than everyone writing on a Word document, because when you're sharing information, it triggers you to think more. And so it's just my perspective that I think going into breakout rooms is better than writing on a whiteboard or writing in a shared document.
I agree with you, Mary Ellen, that it's a yes and. Let's say within a breakout room, you've got 5 people and you want to capture all those ideas that you're discussing. You'll want to put it into a document that you can then share with everybody else.
Right.
That would be a use of it. Mm-hmm.
Right.
Yeah. Emily, you had a question.
Yeah, so I'm normally the host for my my board meetings and all the meetings. Whenever we go into executive session, staff leaves. When we did that, when I went to go leave the meeting, I did set up another host. I just didn't, I had 3 options when I clicked close to leave the meeting, end meeting for all, or cancel. And when I just did leave meeting, I just left the meeting. The only thing that changed was that the recording stopped. But I don't think there's any other, which we wanted. I don't think there was any other things that they couldn't do without the host.
Did you make them a host?
Nope, I just left. There was no host.
Ah, that's when it said leave meeting. But you don't know if they would have been able to put everybody else into breakout rooms or anything like that, do you?
No, they were just continuing the conversation.
That works. That'll work. Yeah. But if you're going to want to do anything with the people, breakout rooms and such, you would need to have a host in there to do that.
Okay, so that's just okay.
Yeah. Other questions before we go into recording? Okay.
Yes, Susan.
Yes.
How do I'm still host. How do I give the hosting duties back to Paul?
You hover over Paul's name.
Yep.
Click more.
Yep.
And whoa. Does it say, and on top it says Paul Stock is the host now.
Got it. Done. Thank you.
It's actually very simple. There's a lot of things that Zoom does that's very simple, and other things that you kind of wonder why they did it. It's almost like, I can imagine people sitting around a room saying, we need to make this happen, and they make it happen, and then they use it, and they say, oh, it would be easier if it was done like this. But unless somebody else is actually using it for what we use it for, it's not necessarily going to be easy for how we want to use it. As with anything. So recording. Anybody remember this? Not the Tina Turner, but like cassette tapes. Right. Recording. Same place in the settings, only we've been mostly looking at meeting. One box over, it's recording. If you click on that, you'll see your options for recording. Under recording, you'll see all these different things you could do. Local recording means it's going to go onto your computer. At the end, if you say, I want to record the meeting, it's going to go on your computer. If you do that and you go into a breakout room, the recording will follow you as the host. In a breakout room, if you've set that participants can record locally, they can record also to their computer. If you opt for cloud recording, it will go into the cloud. It does not follow the host. So it's not going to record what happens in breakout rooms. If you want to be absolutely sure that your executive session is not recorded, and you don't know if somebody is recording locally or whatever, you can pause recording before you go into the session. Problem with that is you may forget to turn it back on again when you come back in. So I would opt for cloud recording and still try to remember to turn it off and turn it on, but this way you know it's supposed to be not recording at all. And within cloud recording, you have all these different options. Do you want to record the active speaker with a shared screen? Do you want to record just an audio file? Do you want to record an audio only file for people who can't have video? Like maybe you want to be able to listen to it alone. Do you want to save the chat? Again, I always opt for yes for saving things because you can always delete it. And then there's some more cloud settings. Do you want to display their name? Do you want to display the thumbnail pictures? Do you want to set it up to automatically record as the meeting starts? Something you may or may not want to do, that's your option. And down at the bottom is a recording disclaimer. Do you want to set it up so that as soon as somebody enters the meeting, there's a note that says, this meeting is being recorded? If you do that, there will also be an audio announcement. to the people who are on the phone that this meeting is being recorded. Question? Yes.
Quick question. How did you get to that recording settings again?
Let me back up. You're in your web, you're in zoom.us, you've signed in. You can go to your profile, meetings, webinars, recordings, or up here, it's recording. And when you're in settings, you click on settings, it defaults to meeting settings. But if you click on recording, you'll see the recording settings.
Okay. And you only get to all these options if you have a certain account, right? Like a
I have a regular paid pro account.
Yeah, that's what I have. So
yeah. These are screenshots from my desk.
So if I have done the record after speaker with shared screen, or it will do the whole video of everything that we're seeing right now?
Yes.
Oh, okay, because I've just been doing audio and I didn't know you could do that whole thing.
Yeah, record gallery view with a shared screen, record the active speaker with a shared screen. So when you see this, what you'll probably see is whoever is talking and this shared screen. You won't see everybody. You'll just see the active speaker with the shared screen.
That's great. Thank you.
Okay. Security. And I know that Paul's going to be leaving us shortly, so everybody say goodbye to Paul. Bye, Paul. See you later. Somebody asked about open meetings and security, or when you're going into executive session because we have sensitive things. If you're in an organization that is required to have, because of sunshine laws, you're required to have your meetings open to the public. You have to be very aware of security. There have been things called Zoom bombs. And let me go back. A quick stop share because I want to see people's faces. Where people find out you're having a meeting, it's publicly announced, they can get the link, they can go into it, and they start sharing their screen with pornography, audio loud over people. There was one poor young man who was presenting his doctoral dissertation, and somebody came onto the screen with shouting racial slurs and racial slurs on the screen by sharing their screen. How do you prevent people from doing that if you're required to have an open meeting? One way to do that is to require people to register for the meeting in advance. You're not saying they can't come, but they have to register. And that was where we said in the settings, require registration. You'll have your list in front of it. You'll have an idea of who's there. And then with the waiting room, you can let people in that you know first and be aware of who you're letting in one at a time so you can see what they're doing. And you can always have them come in with, anybody who's coming in must be muted. You can set your settings so that mute only, rather that anybody arriving is muted. And you can set it up, you can even set it up that anybody coming in has their video turned off. So that's one way of mitigating that. Okay. Has anybody here have open meetings?
Yes.
Claudia, Marge, yeah. My synagogue.
We actually had a meeting the other day that was open. One person showed up, but I had put in our facilitator notes to ask if anybody that was on the line was from the public. Mm-hmm. So then she was able to say, you know, we will address public questions at the end, and then put everybody on mute.
Yeah.
But I have had that instance where I had a Zoom meeting and somebody that I didn't know came in through audio and we didn't know him, and so he realized he wasn't in the right meeting. So I'm guessing that Zoom just assigns phone numbers that are pretty close together, and that's how he ended up in my meeting. But I had never experienced that before.
Yeah, I've had people mistake which number they should be calling if it's a phone one. But that's also why you might want to require a password to get in. So it's the last things that we're covering. Okay, let me do that. We probably have no more than 10 minutes, probably only 5 minutes left, but I'm going to do a quick stretch also.
Susan, while you're stretching, can I just ask about the person that comes in and is disrupting the meeting? Is there a way
You can kick out. You can kick them out. You can kick them out in the participants.
How do you do that?
If you're a host, you hover over the person's name, you click on more, and you can remove.
Ah, okay.
It's only there if you're the host though, or the co-host. It's another reason for having co-hosts. Somebody who can keep a watch on that so that the host is, the person who's running the meeting isn't distracted. It's especially important if you have open meetings. You need to have somebody who is monitoring the participants while you're leading the meeting.
I would second that because I've been doing that and I couldn't see the chat and I didn't have anybody monitoring it.
It's
so
distracting, very distracting.
Mm-hmm.
Yep. So last one is about security. So we just talked a little bit about that. As part of security, Zoom has created it where the default is to require a password when scheduling a new meeting. You can turn that off, but the default is now that a password will be required. You didn't need a password to get into this meeting because it was in the link that was sent to you. It's coded into the link that was sent to you. But if you don't have that link for the meeting, you couldn't get in unless you had a password. Recommendation is not to use your personal meeting ID for meetings. But if you do, you can also require a password. What you had when you received the link for this meeting, it was clicked on to embed the password in the meeting link so that you could have a one-click join. If you didn't have that, you would have a link and have to put in a password. So one way you can do that is not embed the password in the meeting link. Turn that off. Everybody can have that one-click meeting. Everybody can get a link to get to the meeting, including your board members. But your board members, you've sent the password in a separate email so they can get in. Let's say you have a private meeting where you don't want anybody there. You can opt to have everybody muted when they enter. If it's not an open meeting, there's no reason to mute everybody on entry. You can still have that social lubricant of everybody saying, hi, how are you, etc. End of slideshow. And there we have the board meeting. Now we talked about engaging board meeting. This was more of a tutorial than actually having a meeting. It's really important when you're going to be engaging people in a board meeting is ask people to read things that you have on the screen. Deliberately ask individuals what they're thinking. If somebody is on the phone and not video, make sure that you periodically say, Lori, I know that you can see what we're doing, but say, Lori, did you have any questions about that? Or Jane, we've heard from everybody here in the room. What are you thinking? Any questions? There's a lot of the things that you would do in a regular board meeting that you can do this way. What we covered are some of the things that are unique to the video. One of them is more frequent breaks, being very conscious of people who can't see what you're seeing. That's really important. Having a co-host so that you can focus on running the meeting. Working with people who you know are more technologically challenged in advance of the meeting so that they're not 3 steps behind, only because, not because their mind's not working fast enough, but because they can't find what you're doing. So having a 15, 20-minute meeting before the meeting with people who are not comfortable with Zoom, do it a couple times, make it available to people. Other ideas people would have for making it more comfortable for people to be in Zoom, to have an engaging meeting. Send documents out in advance. I know that's a best practice for board meetings, to send documents out in advance anyway. It's even more important now. People who are tactile, where you would normally hand things out in the meeting so they can write notes. If you send it in advance, they can print it and have it in front of them to take notes. So that best practice of sending things in advance becomes even more important now. Other ideas you've had for making it engaging? And any last questions? Larry?
Will this be available, this recording be available to us?
Absolutely. This is going to be available. One thing, it may take longer to become available than usual. I did a meeting on Monday that was 45 minutes. We recorded to the cloud. They normally say that it will take twice the length of the meeting to 24 hours before it becomes available. It actually took almost 2 full days for that recording to be available to me, but it was perfectly available. The chat was saved, the meeting was saved, the breakout sessions were not.
And where would this be found?
This one, Dana will let you know where it will be found.
Okay.
But you would, oh wait, that's a great question. I'll get to you in a moment, Mary Ellen. When you are finding your recordings as host, oh yes, I should have set that up as one of the, okay, share it. Okay, I'm going to go, screen sharing is stopped at the shared window. It goes, no. Sorry, guys. I want to show you where it is, and I think that's really important for you to know. Okay, let me move. I'm pausing the, no, not, where the recordings are. Okay. So, when you log into Zoom, and you're in your, and you've logged in, under admin, advanced, and in advanced, you will see recordings. Oh, I'm sorry, I'm wrong. Under recordings, not the one up here, under the profile meetings, webinars, recordings settings, over here, if you click on recordings, you will see all of the recordings for the meetings that you have held. And it will tell you whether, and within those recordings, you'll be able to see whether the files that it records the video file. If you set it up to record an audio as well, it will be there. And if you set it up to record the chat as well in your settings, the chat will be there as well. And yes, Mary Ellen.
Will these PowerPoints that you have be recorded in the recording that we will be able to look at?
Yes. It was set up so that you'll probably see my head talking about the slides. I believe that's how Dana has it set up.
Thank you.
Mm-hmm. Claudia?
Yes, you had we asked about the chat. So you had said you could get that through your settings from recording, but how do they allow you to be able to get it in a way that you can print the chat questions out?
In the recordings, you'll have the chat, but if you look at chat right now, look at your chat, and I believe, okay, you may or may not have the option to, yes, you do, okay. Bottom right of the chat screen, the 3 little dots, which is your more, you can save the chat there. It should say save chat.
Oh, okay. And where would you then find the transcript of that?
It's, as the host, it will go wherever you designated any saved recordings to go, but I find it in a Zoom file folder on my desk, on my computer.
Okay.
But you'll probably find it in your recents, in your recent files. It comes in as a text. So it's going to say, you know, Lori Sittler, : it'll be a timestamp, Lori Sittler, : and what she says and sends. And then the next line will be timestamp Marge, : and what she said. So in order to clean it up, you'll run it through a couple of find and replaces on your Word doc in Word.
Okay, thanks. Because last time I didn't know how to do it, so I did screenshots.
Oh,
it was
yeah.
painful.
Yeah. Marge, question?
This is a personal question, I think, but I don't know if anybody else is having this problem either. This didn't used to happen, but when you would go from this screen I'm looking at now with all the participants to a shared screen, my computer goes back to my desktop. And the only way I can get to your document is to click down on the Zoom icon and bring it up. It used to just go back and forth. I don't know, does anybody else have that issue?
If nobody else is having that issue, Marge, why don't you stay on afterwards and we'll see if we can figure out what's going on.
Okay.
Other questions? Thank you, everybody. The other thing that you might want to do, depending on your group of people, is as people leave, you can just unmute everybody and they can continue chatting for a little while, because that's what happens after meetings. But this meeting is adjourned.
Thank you.
Thank you all.
It was very helpful. Thank you so much.
But, oh, and as I said, reminder, I believe Dana is setting up something that you'll be able to invite your board members to come to, like a half hour or whatever, Zoom basics just for them.
And where do you find that? Where would you
ask Dana. Tony, do you have any idea on that?
It'll show up on, if it's a new event, it'll show up on our event calendar on our website.
And you also might get an email from Paul about it, because it's specifically for board members.
Yep.
Thank you.
That's terrific. Thanks for all your support, Dana.
Thank you, Lori. Good to see you.
Thank you.
And hear you.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
Bye.
Any other personal questions? Nope. Okay. Marge, let's figure this out, okay? I think Lori got off the phone, but not the computer, so I will remove her. Yeah. I thought I removed her. Hold on. Move. That's right, because I hit cancel instead of okay. Okay, so Marge, what you're saying is that if I share my screen, you're not automatically seeing the shared screen.
Right.
That's very odd. What kind of a computer are you using? Oh, I'm going to stop the recording. Right.